Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to Unit 5 about sound and light, Lesson 11. We're going to be talking about the voice today. So what I want you to do first is I want you to touch your throat right here and just talk normally or hum. And what do those vibrations feel like in your throat? Can you feel the vibrations on the inside, the outside, or both? And what other objects make vibrations we can hear? Think about other objects that vibrate that we can hear. So now what I want you to do is I want you to go back and forth between making a very quiet sound and making a very loud sound like this. And think about how your throat feels different when you make those two different sounds. Do you remember what intensity is? What kind of sound, soft or loud, has the most intensity? If you said a loud sound, you are correct. Now do the same and make a high-pitched sound, like a squeaky little mouse, just like this. And then make a low-pitched sound like a person with a very deep voice. Does your throat feel different when you make those two sounds? Do you remember what frequency is? How it affects the pitch of the sound? We're going to learn more about this as we read our read aloud today. So here we go. Back to Jack and Samuel and Alfie. Many weeks passed before Samuel, Jack, Amy, and Ethan were able to spend some time together again. After a long, hot summer, school had reopened and the children were also involved in after-school sports. During that time, Samuel had undergone eye surgery to remove cataracts from his eyes, and Jack now had to wear his hearing aid all the time. You can see his hearing aid right here, right? Boys and girls, as I'm reading this, I want you to think about what your favorite part of this story is, because you're going to have to write that in the discussion question when you're finished. The outside world had changed too. Fall had arrived. Green leaves had been replaced by a montage of copper, red, yellow, and brown leaves. Gone was the warm morning air, and in its place was a chilly morning breeze. There were many mornings when frost lay on the ground. Everyone was looking forward to Thanksgiving as a joyful holiday to spend with family and friends. It was a Saturday morning, and Jack was sitting in Samuel's kitchen. The two men were playing their weekly game of chess. They had first played chess together when they were third grade classmates. They had not been playing for long when Amy and Ethan arrived and scampered eagerly into the kitchen, closely pursued by Alfie. They had come to visit their grandfather, and Amy had some exciting news to share with him. Slow down, advised Samuel. You'll go crashing into the wall if you aren't careful, he warned. As Samuel spoke, Alfie wagged his tail and promptly sat down on Ethan's feet. Hello, Granddad, said Amy cheerfully. How are you? I'm very well, replied Samuel cheerfully. What have you troublemakers been up to? It's almost Thanksgiving, said Ethan excitedly. We're going to sing in a concert at school. You are you? Said Jack. Well, I hope we're invited to hear you sing. Oh, yes, you are, chimed in Amy. We brought you tickets, see? Amy held up 2 tickets. It's next Wednesday, and you have front row seats. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes are going to sing traditional songs from around the world. My class is singing an Irish lullaby, Amy explained. My class is going to sing a French song called Farajaka, said Jack. I'm sorry, said Ethan. Before reading, so look at this picture. Does this remind you of anything that we've talked about in the past when we talked about light rays? Hopefully it's reminding you of an X-ray. Sounds very entertaining, said Jack as he contemplated his next move on the chessboard. Remember, contemplate means to think. You know, each human voice is quite unique. Each voice has its own tone. That's the reason why you can recognize a person by his or her voice, explained Jack. You know when somebody walks in the room and you can tell it's your mom's voice, or you can tell it's your dad's voice? Our voices are as unique as we are, Samuel agreed. Only I have my voice. Precisely, agreed Jack. However, although human voices differ from one another, they are all produced, made in the same way. They are, said Ethan. Indeed they are, Jack continued, having finally decided to move one of his bishops. If you could see inside your body, you would discover that inside your throat, at the top of your windpipe or trachea, which is right here, this is your trachea, is your voice box. The voice box is also known as the larynx, which is right here, that brown thing. Within your larynx are two bands of muscles called vocal cords. These vocal cords enable humans to make a wide range of sounds. So you can see the larynx, the vocal cords, and the trachea all labeled in the picture here. Neat, said Ethan, but how is the sound made? It's not as complicated as you might think, explained Jack. When you breathe in, your vocal cords relax so that air can reach your lungs. When you breathe out, a muscle called the diaphragm moves upward to force air out of your body. And I think it got cut off, but this is the diaphragm down here below your lungs. Oops. When you speak, air leaves your body too. Your lungs and diaphragm force air through the opening in your throat past the vocal cords. This movement of air causes the vocal cords to vibrate, and so sound is produced. As your vocal cords tighten and relax, different sounds are produced. Check, announced Samuel. What? Yelled Jack. Don't tell me you're going to beat me again, Samuel Van Lumen. Jack stared furiously at the chessboard and tried to find a way out of his predicament. Come on, Alfie, said Jack. Let's go play ball. To the children, he said, I wasn't finished telling you about the power of the human voice. I'm coming too, Amy announced. And with that, the two children and Alfie ran out into Samuel's backyard. The children played with Alfie for quite a while. Then they stayed for lunch with Samuel and Jack. Finally, it was time for them to go home. See you on Wednesday at the concert, said Ethan. You will indeed, said Samuel. I'll continue my lesson then, threatened Jack. Here we are in the school auditorium. Before they knew it, Wednesday had arrived. It was a cool day and rain had been forecast. Samuel and Jack arrived early and took their seats in the front of the school auditorium. 30 minutes later, the auditorium was full and parents waited anxiously to see their children perform. Do you hear the word auditorium? Remember back when we started talking about sound and we talked about Jack Audier's name? A-U-D means auditory, A-U-D referring to hearing. So when you're in an auditorium, you're listening to something. Samuel's daughter Anna and her husband John had also arrived and were eager to hear Amy and Ethan sing. First up was Ethan's class singing Frère Jacques, a traditional French song. Behind them was a large screen with an image of the Eiffel Tower displayed on it. The children sang the song perfectly. Samuel and Jack smiled proudly. I can hear Ethan's voice distinctly, said Jack. Then it was Amy's class's turn. They sang an Irish lullaby beautifully. Samuel nodded at Jack and said, I can hear Amy's voice too, nice and strong. When the concert was over, the family walked together to the local cafe for hot chocolate. They took their seats, and minutes later, they were all sipping mugs of hot chocolate piled high with marshmallows. As they talked about the show, Jack complimented the children on their singing. My teacher says I have perfect pitch, said Amy proudly. What's that? Ethan asked, looking puzzled. Amy was happy to explain. When my chorus teacher is ready for my class to sing, she likes us to start on the note of middle C. Instead of her playing it on the piano, I just sing it. Middle C on the piano, if you have a keyboard at home, is the key right in the middle. Wow, said Jack. Did I tell you that the pitch of your voice is determined by the size of your larynx and vocal cords? No, you didn't, chimed in Ethan with marshmallow on his top lip. That's why a young child's voice is generally higher in pitch than an adult's, explained Jack. The larger your larynx and vocal cords, the louder and lower your voice is. The pitch of your voice is also determined by the tension of the surrounding muscles. Trained singers learn how to control these muscles to produce variations in pitch and intensity. Oh, so that's what it means to train your voice, said Amy. And I bet men usually have longer vocal cords than women, and that's why their voices are deeper. You've got it, said Jack. You and Granddad are so smart, said Ethan. I'm much smarter than he is, joked Jack. Well, laughed Samuel, actions speak louder than words. Jack's eyebrows raised as Samuel made the motions of struggling with a fishing pole. You are both very clever, Amy laughed. I'm so glad we have been able to spend so much time with both of you. Me too, shouted Ethan. The next day was Thanksgiving. Samuel, Jack, and an array or group of family members and friends gathered in Samuel's home for dinner. They ate, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. They gave thanks for each other and the bonds that Samuel and Jack had nurtured for so many years. So you're going to go to the discussion in Schoology and you're going to write what your favorite part of this read aloud was.